All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see so many faces, especially people that I recognize. Thank you for spreading the word about this event. We know that everybody has been sharing and telling their friends and families about this event. It's really exciting. You are here for So You Want to Be an Author. It is really exciting to have you here. I'm your host, Delsy Sandoval. I'm thrilled to be with you today. You might recognize me from the Ocu-Pasion podcast. This is a podcast where we celebrate the intersection of culture and creativity. We have an incredible gathering in store for you today. I'm really excited for you to delve into the journeys of two remarkable award-winning authors, Valeria Aloe and Ashley K. Stoyanov Ojeda. They're going to be sharing their experiences with you, their insights, and we're going to talk about all of it, from the publishing process to starting to write your book and how they turn these books into national movements bigger than they could have imagined. And hopefully it helps you figure out how to make that happen for yourself. So I think today's event is really about learning and transforming your book idea into action. So whether you're an aspiring author or you're just somebody creative, I hope that you get a lot out of today. And we're going to start by introducing our authors. Let's start off with an introduction of Ashley K. Stoyanov Ojeda, one of my favorite people, a good friend of mine, somebody that you all probably already have seen online, and is somebody in the community doing a lot. And let's talk about what she's doing. Ashley is a multicultural, bilingual business strategist for the New Majority, a top-selling author and speaker with 10 years of experience in business development, community marketing, and communications. She was inspired to write and publish the first Spanglish business launching book for the next generation of Latina creative entrepreneurs called Jefa in Training. This is a book that personally helped me, and it is really what got us here. Through her consulting, newsletter, book, workshops, she's been able to help hundreds of startup founders, including myself, small business owners and creative entrepreneurs take their business to the next level. Welcome, Ashley. Now we're going to meet Valeria Aloe, the author of Uncolonized Latinas, Transforming Our Mindsets and Rising Together. This is a powerful work. I actually really love this book. I'm so excited to be talking about this book because it's so important. It's about mindset transformation and behavioral change in our community. She's also the founder of the Rising Together movement with the mission of helping close Latino leadership and wealth gaps. Aside from this, she also has 2 decades of experience in brand management, business development, and finance across 7 countries. She has earned several awards, including Top 100 Latinas in the United States in 2023. So wow, no big deal. Welcome, Ashley, and welcome, Valeria. I think a good place to start would be for each of you to kind of walk us through a little bit more about your journey as an author, and specifically a focus on your books and maybe the inspiration behind them. Ashley, would you like to start?
Hi, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Delsy, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And Valeria, I'm so excited to be doing this with you, because who else to celebrate Latina authors than with my Latina soul hermana, Valeria. I'm so excited to be here. But my book, Jefa in Training, which you can see in the background of me, shout out to my mom who made this ginormous Jesucristo-like canvas photo of me, which I don't normally have behind me, but I'm in the middle of a move and I couldn't find my book to show you guys, so this is the closest thing. My book Jefa in Training came out last February on 2/22/22, so a very special date, and it's the first and only that I know of Spanglish business launching guide and toolkit. So it's a step-by-step guide to launching and growing your business. It takes you from everything to defining your business idea through marketing strategies, PR, thought leadership, financials, legal things, and essentially helps helps you create a roadmap, much like I help my clients do, as you start to launch and grow your business. And it's been very, very well received. It got really great endorsements from the one and only Eva Longoria, Beatriz Acevedo from Me Too and Suma, and so many more. It's just been such an amazing journey, and I've gotten to meet amazing people like the ones who are here today. And I'm just so grateful because I want this journey for everyone. I think we need to be telling more of our stories, and I'm just super happy to be talking about this topic.
And for me, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for joining us. Excited to do this with my fellow Latina sisters, Ashley and Delsy. And in my personal case, I burnt out in 2016 after a life of sacrifices, working really hard. First one to go to college in Argentina, first one to go to professional spaces, corporate spaces, came to the US 21 years ago for an MBA. And I sacrificed myself to succeed, essentially. And what was, Delsy reads my bio, and that can seem like a story of success. I really hit a wall big time in that year, 2016. And I embarked on a mission to understand why, what happened to me, why this darkness, why this feeling inferior, inadequate, not belonging, after 15 years in the US, not feeling home. And I started a Master's of Spiritual Sciences, a lot of self-awareness, learning. And I started at the same time, I stepped out of corporate and I started to lead incubators in the tri-state area, so helping small business owners, Hispanic small business owners. And I started to see the same patterns, how we limit ourselves in a way, right? And I said, there's something cultural, there's something that we're very diverse as Latinos, Latinas, and we share this way of holding ourselves back, like not making the money we deserve, not asking for what we need, feeling less, right? So I embarked on a mission of talking to people. Like, I'm going to start calling Latinas and Latinos who overcame, and who got somewhere and who seem to be successful. And I will ask them, how did they do it? How did they start? And how did they get where they were? And from a hobby, it became, I think I'm going to write a book about this, because I started to learn so much that I was hoping I want to share these stories and these voices with as many Latinas and Latinos as I can in my community. And that's where the book came up. And COVID hit, and I did 7 workshops on Zoom with people sharing this content. And it was like people became like so passionate about these topics and having these discussions that I said there's something to it. And the book came alive that way. It was very organic. It was a journey of transformation that changed my life, changed the way that I see myself as a Latina, changed the way that I see our community, really gave me the fire inside to go out in the world and invite us, Latinos and Latinos, to really achieve our dreams and take our space and believe in ourselves, because we deserve so much more than what we have right now. So that's my journey, and I can share more. But if there is one word, is transformational. And same as Ashley said, I wish this transformation to each one of you. It's really powerful.
Thank you, Valeria and Ashley, for the really beautiful introduction to your work and the inspiration behind it. I want to take a moment to acknowledge everybody in the chat. I see that everyone is participating. We love that. Go ahead and participate. Let us know where you're from, why you're here, what resonates with you about what you're hearing, anything that you'd like to know about the book, because there will be a Q&A at the end of the session. All right, we are going to dive in, everyone. We are going to get into the portion where we will ask specific questions about the entire process from A to Z. I'd like to start off with asking about how you even start to generate your idea for a book and determine the genre, maybe your target audience.
Sure, I can take that one first if you want. So my book was, I think I've always known that I was going to write a book, maybe write multiple books in my life. But my book was mainly inspired by my own experience in my first business, which was actually a nonprofit organization. So for those of you who have not read Jefa in Training, I talk a little bit about how I started. I actually started in the music industry, and that led me to somehow create an international nonprofit for women songwriters. And I became a founder of an international organization within a year and started a team of about 50 people within a year without knowing anything that I was doing. And the organization just kept growing and growing and growing. And so I quickly grabbed every business book under the sun that I could find, read every blog, listened to every podcast that there was at the time. And I found it really hard to connect to these books because I couldn't relate to the authors. I felt like all of the authors of these books that I was consuming had an incredible amount of financial privilege, or they came from a family of entrepreneurs, so they had a huge network, and I just didn't have any of the resources that they had, and as my organization continued to grow, I realized that I was never taught in any kind of way on how to build a great foundation for a sustainable business. And so in my head, I thought, wouldn't it be great if someone like me could create a resource like this to help more people? And then I thought, what if it was me who wrote this kind of book? And so in 2019, I started to think, okay, how can I write a book? At the time, I was managing a co-working space on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and there was someone there that was writing a book. She had just gotten a book deal from Harvard Business Review, and I asked her, how do you get a book deal? I want to write a book. And she said, the first thing that you should do is you should start looking up agents and pitch yourself to them, which we'll talk more about that process later. Long story short, I started sending out a bunch of proposals in 2019, and I got rejected from all of them. And I got very discouraged, and I said, okay, well, let me take a break. Then COVID happened, life happened, and I completely forgot about this idea. Not completely forgot, but, got pushed to the back burner because life. And then I started working with the Mujerista to build their online community. And through some sort of fate, I met an acquiring editor from Mango Publishing. And I didn't really know what she did or who she was at the time. We were talking about doing some book giveaways for the Mujerista. And she said, are you writing a book? Because I really like everything that you're about and your vision and everything that you want to put out into the world. And I said, oh my gosh, I am. And she said, you can send me your proposal and I'll pass it on to the team. And then that happened. I stayed up all night doing the thing. And here we are 3 years later. So things really escalated quite quickly. And it was kind of an accident and a form of maybe manifestation and luck combined. But that's kind of how it all happened for me. I really just wanted to share my experience, share the experiences of other Latina entrepreneurs to show that, we can do this and we can build successful businesses, and that it's not impossible, and that we don't need a lot of money and we don't need a lot of connections to start. And that's kind of how it all came to be for me.
I'm curious, and maybe Valeria, you can dive into this piece. Once you have this idea and you know that this is what you want to do, what are the crucial elements to consider when you're drafting a proposal or when you're drafting a manuscript? What should authors focus on when you're trying to convey your story?
So I had a little bit of a different journey. First of all, I love books all my life, and I always had this intuition. I've been in professional services, corporate spaces all my life, and I always had the intuition that I was going to launch a physical product of some sort. And I thought it was going to be maybe shoes or, I don't know, socks. And then one day I said, I love books. I have been reading books since I've been little, and they opened my mind to new spaces. And that's how I perfected my English, by reading. And when I burnt out, I embarked on this mission of understanding why am I here. And I, similar to Ashley, I read all books out there and found nothing about our Latina mindset. So before I forget, and I answer your question, Delsy, there is something about numbers here that I don't want to forget. My book was published January 11, 2021. Ashley, I saw you had some powerful numbers in your publishing day as well. Important. So my journey was, I'm listening to these stories. These are stories worth sharing. It's not just my voice, it's the voice of our community that these voices deserve a space. They deserve to be heard. And I embarked on this mission of interviewing, I think, 55 Latinas. And something that happened in that journey is half of them cried when we were having these Zoom meetings. And so I had an idea that I wanted to do a nonfiction book. I had an idea that it had to be about the Latina mindset and how our culture has these messages that hold us back. I didn't find anything about that out there. And I just started to write. I said, I'm going to start writing. And I sat down one day and I wrote like 3,000 words. And I put together a one-pager about the book. And I sent that to 5 friends. And I said, would you read a book like this? And the feedback was, you're trying to tackle too much in this one book. This is like 10 books. So give me a one-pager for a book. And that's how I started. I had a one-pager. I had 3,000 words. And I went to Facebook and I saw this authors group. And somebody posted something about, are you looking for an editor? I'm like, I'm going to need an editor at some point. So I went into that group, into that specific post, and in one of the, when your destiny is meant to take place and happen, you cannot escape, clearly. So I go down this post in Facebook. There's a comment that says, check out this program with Georgetown University. It's a hybrid publishing program. So I checked that out, that link, set up a call with this professor at Georgetown. He's asking for a one-pager about the book, which I had already done and had feedback from the community. I sent that. And I got into this program to develop my book in 9 months. So it was really organic for me. It was understanding there are some voices out there, some stories that haven't found a place. There are stories that as Latinas, we are not sharing because we're afraid of the stigma of what our boss will say, of what people out there will say. And I said, I'm going to say it. I'm going to be the one saying this. And if you want, in the book, I will protect your name. I will not make your name public. And I went out sharing those stories. So I did not do a proposal for that particular book. Now, let me share. This is not public yet. This week, I signed a contract for my second book with Editorial Planeta. It's going to go all over the Americas. So for that one, I had to do a proposal. And what I did is I called my friend Ashley and I said, Ashley, I know you did a proposal. Please help me. I never wrote a proposal. So Ashley sent me this document that was like 20 pages long that essentially talks about what's going on in the market, why this book will solve something that there is a need that doesn't exist today. Like there's a need and the book will be a solution to that. Why me as an author? Why this person? Why my story? Why right now? Why is the book important right now? And then the proposal goes into understanding who is going to be the audience reading the book, particularly age, demographics, mindset. Then it goes more into the table of contents and even a paragraph of each chapter, what you plan to write in each chapter. So it's a little scary. Ashley stayed overnight. I took her template and I took a week to put something together. But that's what we do, right? We share with each other, we help each other. And because Ashley helped me, I had this template, I put my information in there, refined it, slept on it, woke up the next day and sent that to Editorial Planeta and it was accepted. So that's the journey. And I have to say, you need to know who you're talking to. You need to understand what the need is. That's the most important, and be super clear about why what you have to say, your book will be a solution that no one else is exploring. So what's your unique angle in a way? So thank you, Ashley.
I want to say, Valeria, that I'm excited to hear that you called Ashley, because I also call Ashley when I'm confused or want to know where to start. And I think one of the things that's beautiful about today's event is that Valeria kind of came to us saying, I want to do this because lots of people have questions and we need to share this information and we need to help people start the process of writing these books and bringing these ideas to life. I like that you mentioned that you sat down and wrote 3,000 words in one in one sitting. And my next question is really about that. Part of this is the discipline, right? How do you establish writing goals for yourself? How do you maintain consistency through this writing routine?
Yeah. So I'll tackle that one really fast and I will transition to Ashley. So before I sit down right now, like I have learned how to do it and how not to do it. It's a creative process. So think about a canvas that you're, as an artist, going to paint, right? And I'm coming from a financial background before I went into marketing. So I had to change my mindset a lot about, am I really creative and can I do this? And once I said to myself, yes, I will dig deep into my creative angle and I will allow myself to explore. What I started to do is to capture all these conversations that I was having with people and to identify themes. And I put sticky notes on a wall. And I tell you, some weekends I was sitting in front of the sticky notes for 1 hour, observing the different themes and the different, so I was looking into what themes are repeated, but also I was looking into what gaps am I finding? What are the things these women are not talking about? Because they talk about some things, but some things are being not discussed. So in my next interviews, I went there in the gap. But the sticky notes allowed me to have a visual component to really see these are the topics, the most important ones. These are the conversations we want to have, but we're not having. And my house has been filled with sticky notes for an entire year. And that's how I started. And then I sat down and started to write about this one sticky note today, this one sticky note tomorrow. And then I started to compile. That has been my process. And every single day I booked 1 or 2 hours. I was very intentional about, I want to be in the right mindset. I never wrote if I was tired or had a headache. I wanted to be in the right energy. I wanted to be in an energy of expansion to bring that into the book. It's about transforming your mindset. So I wanted myself to be in that space of possibility. And every day I booked time. And if I was not in the mood of writing, I was maybe listening to a podcast, doing some research. So every single day moving forward with something. So that has been my process.
I think what Valeria said is so important, like to not force yourself to write when you're too tired or when you're feeling burnt out, because as someone who has been labeled as a creative her whole life, as I mentioned before, I started in music. Creativity does not stem from being tired or feeling burnt out. It stems from taking the time and making the space and, getting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit so that you can call in these new ideas. And so what really helped me was a few things. I learned a lot about myself and how I can tap into that creativity while writing the book. One, I kept working. So I kept talking to my clients because at the end of the day, the book, the reason I think it's been so impactful, it's because it showcases real problems and real stories from real people that I worked with while I was writing the book. So there were so many times where I thought, I think I'm done with this chapter. And then a week would go by and I would have conversations with clients and I would say, no, I am not done. I'm not done with this chapter. I have to go back and add these things because this came up 3 times this week in my consultation. So I need to add this. People need to know this information. Clearly, there's a need for this. Number 2, I realized that I cannot write at my desk. I need to be literally anywhere else. So I think maybe for me, this desk symbolizes I'm in strategy mode. I am here, I'm working with clients, I'm planning for the future. Creativity does not happen. I mean, this is the new office, so who knows? Maybe it will happen in this office, but at the time, I looked around and I just could not write at home. So the majority of my book was written at the coffee shop that was very close to my house. So shout out to that bubble tea place that was in walking distance to my house in Florida. But those were like the 2 things. And then really just like I would get feedback from certain chapters. This was closer to the end of the process where I would basically like bring a section to a client during a meeting and say, hey, does this make sense? Give me your feedback. I want to know your thoughts. And then they would tell me, hey, this was confusing. And then I would elaborate on that. So they were really like my first editors were the clients, the target audience for this book. They were like my test readers as I was going through the chapters, and really trying to work at it every day, but also being okay with not working on it every day if I felt too tired, because that is a very, very important part of it. You want to be in the right mindset. This book is going to touch hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. So you want them to feel the energy that you're putting into the book, and you don't want them to feel exhausted while they're reading the book, right? So I think that it's very important to make sure that you're in the right headspace too when you're doing this.
Thank you, Ashley. I'd like to jump in a little bit talking about publishing. There are so many key differences here. We know that there are different options for publishing. Maybe you can walk us through the key differences between traditional publishing and self-publishing, and maybe what factors authors or potential authors should consider when making this decision. And I'd like to hear a little bit about each of your stories and what path you chose.
Yeah, sure thing. I can start us off. So I recently wrote a newsletter about this too, which I can share when I send everyone the recording that breaks it down a little bit. But essentially, if you want to do traditional publishing, meaning like you want to work with one of the big five, so there's like Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's 5 of them that are the big guys. You usually have to go through a literary agent to be able to get to those publishers, because they have very, very close relationships with those editors. And those editors usually don't want to hear from anybody but people who they have relationships with. Your literary agent serves as your best advocate. So it is literally their job not just to sell your book to a publisher, but to make sure you get the best deal and that they're not keeping you hostage, basically, in your contract. There are pros and cons to working with a traditional publisher versus what I did, which is work with an indie publisher. Indie publishers are just smaller presses. They put out a smaller amount of books. They have smaller budgets. They're more approachable because of that. And so you don't normally need an agent to work with some of those small presses. Like I said, there are pros and cons to each of these things. I had a great time developing my book with my small publisher. I will say that the cons to that is that their marketing budget is not very large. So you kind of have to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to marketing and PR. But for me, like, that's what I do for a living. So for me, it wasn't that big of a deal. But if you do end up working with a smaller press and they don't support you in that way, know that you're probably going to have to outsource that. And then if you do work with a bigger press, it really depends. I've heard a lot of things depending on the publisher. So you kind of just have to do your own research to see how much help you're going to get from that publisher when it comes to after the book is launched. And when you work with a publisher, that essentially means that you don't pay anything to them. That happens if you do hybrid or self-publishing, which Valeria will talk about. But when you work with a traditional or an indie publisher, no money gets exchanged from your hands to their hands. In fact, they really should be paying you. If you work with a bigger publisher, there's a chance that you will get an advance, and that advance is for you to use however you want. And you essentially work on selling your book to earn out your advance, and then you start getting royalties. That deal your agent should work out for you depending on where you are in your career. So for my first book, I did not get an advance, but I get 50% of royalties now because I've earned out that initial stage, which is way more than most authors get. They might get an advance, but they get about 3 to 5% of royalties after the book is out and after they've earned out their advance. It's a little bit confusing. There's really no right or wrong way to go about this. It really is what makes the most sense for you. For me, I know that for my next book, I am going to go through an agent and try to get to a bigger publisher, because now I have leverage and I have proof of concept and I have thought leadership established in the industry. So I think that it will be possible for me. I'm I know we'll get to questions later, but I see one in the chat about copyrights. That really is dependent on your contract. So that's something for you to negotiate. There's all these different terms that you will need to negotiate with your publisher, like including copyrights, ancillary rights. So like, for example, if you wanted to do a second book in like a series or an additional workbook or a card deck or merch or a podcast or anything like that, like a lot of the times they will include that in your contract, that they will need to get a piece of that. But there's so many things like that that you need to kind of be on the lookout for in contracts. And if you need a literary lawyer, I have a really good recommendation, but I highly advise you to work with a lawyer to look over your contract if you don't have an agent.
So for my book, the first one was hybrid, but I can talk about the difference with self-publishing. So in self-publishing, you put together all the pieces, essentially. So chances are that because you're not with one of the publishers, your book will be mostly online. So if you self-publish, you need to put together all the elements, which mean find your editors, figure out how to generate the codes, find somebody who can format your book so that it's in the format that Amazon takes it. Figure out how to put it up on KDP Amazon, which is the system through which then Amazon sells your book. So there are some companies that offer this service and, you know, different formats, some of them. So what I would recommend is if you approach those businesses, ask them, you know, how many editors will take a look at your book, if they will take care of all the formatting, the creation of the ISBN numbers, which are those barcodes that show up in every book, if they take care of the design of the cover, if they also take care of putting them up there in those systems, because it's a cumbersome process to put it up on Amazon. So the self-publishing part, these businesses who offer this type of services, they all offer different packages. Some of them even offer the marketing portion. So that's something that's all that I know about that world. I can also chat about the hybrid part, what that meant for me. There is a big financial component in the self-publishing, which is you pay for everything. Essentially, you pay for absolutely everything, but then you keep the royalties. In the hybrid world, in which I published, I found this program that allowed me to publish my book in 9 months. And what the program offered was the editors, the coaches that kept me accountable, the design of the cover, all the formatting, some videos to put the book up in Amazon. And then when it was time to promote or do any marketing, I was on my own. So very different to a publisher, right? If you sign a contract with traditional publisher, they will pick up some of the marketing depending on their budget, as Ashley said before. In self-publishing or hybrid, you're on your own. You do your own marketing, and that's quite overwhelming. You know, when I always say when I was pregnant, I told the doctor I was afraid of giving birth, the labor process, and he said, do not be afraid of that. Worry more about what you're going to do with the baby when the baby is out. The book is exactly the same. What are you going to do with the book once the book is out? Right? So that's a key part of all of that. And what I can offer there is in my hybrid process, my financial commitment was small. However, I did a crowdfunding. I think I got like $10,000. And with that, I covered the costs, the expenses of the program, the portion of doing the audiobook. So there are different arrangements, but I would say whatever option you choose, make sure you understand all the components, from who will edit, format the book, put it up there in the online system in Amazon, help you with the marketing, like ask those questions because there are multiple options. Now, on the traditional publisher side, which is for my second book, I did approach many literary agents. None of them got back to me. Even after I published one book, it was very irritating because Latinos represent only 5% of all published books. Really, the publishing industry is not diverse, and roughly 80% of all books out there are from white authors. So that's wrong, you know. But then when you knock on those doors, even through a reference, somebody who opened the door for me to have that meeting, the doors didn't open. I mean, they could not even listen to me. They couldn't care. So what I did is, I'm a very unconventional person sometimes. So what I did is I went into LinkedIn and I said, I'm going to start contacting people who work at these publishers. And that's how I connected with Planeta, through LinkedIn. And then I had coffee with some of the team members and started a dialogue, gave them my book. And then they showed interest and I sent them a proposal without having any agent. And then, of course, I hired an attorney to look at the contract, but I never had an agent. So, there is a system, but also there are ways to innovate and find your way. But the most important part is ask the questions and think about all the steps. You will create a book, but the edition process, who will help you there? How many people will help you? Who will format? Who will create the cover? The codes? Who will put it up there in the system? Who will help you with the marketing? So all those questions are very important to ask, whatever way you choose to publish. And then I saw another question over there, if, like, how did I survive with my first book financially? Because, did the publisher pay any money? No, I essentially continued working full time and I allocated a couple hours per day for my book. And that's how, but I can tell you, the only word that I spoke for those 9 months was libro, book. Like, I had no other topic of conversation. It was all that people heard me talking about, and I was fully immersed in the process. So that's my journey.
Ashley and Valeria, I think what you're talking about is really important with all of the options for hybrid, traditional, self-publishing. What keeps coming to mind is this idea that regardless of what you choose, you will have to be highly involved in the marketing of this book, right? And we talked about that. I'd like to hear more specifics around that. What should be included in a comprehensive marketing plan, social media strategies, book tours, speaking engagements? Tell us all the things. And I'd also like to see if maybe there's a cultural element here, because although we don't represent a lot of published books out there, we do have quite the grassroots effort, especially on social media. So maybe there's something there about the cultural element and the leg up that we might have in terms of marketing.
Oh, I have so much to say about this, but I will keep it for the next 5 minutes so I don't keep you here longer. Okay, so the first thing that everybody needs to know, and those of you who have followed me, this is going to be the second or third or eighth time that you've heard this. There's a difference between just writing a book and becoming an author. If you want to write a book, publish it, put it out into the world to cross it off of your bucket list, go for it. If you want to be an author that writes multiple books like us, gets very well paid speaking engagements, builds a movement, then prepárense. It's essentially like, starting a whole new business. It's not just writing the book, getting the book deal, and then putting it out into the world. No. You're in it for life. For life. Okay? Because that's the thing about books, is that even if you just write one, it's very different from the music industry where I came from, which you release a song and then you have 2 weeks to get it out there. And then everybody just kind of loses interest. You can't get any more press or gigs from that song, et cetera, et cetera. The book, you can milk for your whole life if you want to. Like, there are people who do that. Example, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. That book's been around for 30 years and she's still out doing retreats about it. You know what I mean? And so that's just the one. If you take away anything from this webinar, I want you to understand that if you want to be an author, it is essentially like starting another business. So those of you who are already entrepreneurs and have businesses, know that you're taking on another child that you're going to have to take care of. That being said, I did put together a tour. My book came out kind of like when that last wave of COVID was like really resurfacing. So I didn't know if I was going to get to do a lot of in-person events. So I planned for all virtual, and then some in-person things ended up happening. And I kind of did 2 mini tours last year. The first one was like for 6 weeks, every single day after the book came out, I had something going on, whether it was a podcast releasing, a blog article coming out, an Instagram live, some other kind, like a workshop in a community. Like for 6 weeks, every single day, I had something going on. It was insane. Much like Valeria, the only thing I thought was libro, book, jefa. Like I started to become a robot, you know? But it was worth it. It was so worth it. And what I really leaned on, which makes sense for me because I have a background in community marketing. That's how I started my career, is PR and community marketing. And so what did I lean on for my book launch? PR and community marketing. Between myself, the publicist that I hired, Magdalene, who's amazing, and the publicist from Mango Publishing, the 3 of us, like we just like hit the road running, and we just pitched everybody. And I think I ended up getting like over 50 press features, like big ones too, you know. And it was great. It was really, really great. But there's a lot that goes into it. It's basically a full-time job. It's basically a full-time job. And if hearing this makes you a little bit uncomfy, plan to outsource this, because you're going to need it if you really want to make a splash. And I think that there's a lot of other creative ways that you can sell your book. The launch is very important. Pre-order phase, about 4 to 6 weeks before your book is out, you can get pre-orders for your book. And that is also particularly important if you care about any of the bestsellers lists. If you want to make a bestsellers list, they take a look at your first 2 weeks of sales. So all of your pre-orders go to those first 2 weeks of sales. So, you know, there's a whole strategy that you can do to amp up pre-orders. Pre-orders are a little bit harder to get press on. People want to write about something that's out and out now, because it's an actionable step. People can just go and buy it and they get it. But you know, there are ways that you can incentivize people to pre-order, like extras from the book, exclusive behind the scenes, things like that, that you can do. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. If you don't have the money to tour, you can do a lot of things virtually. The biggest thing, though, that will help you if you want to become an author is start building your platform now. Even if you don't plan on publishing a book for the next 2 years, 5 years, whatever, start working on building your personal brand now, because that will make it so much easier when you have a deal. First of all, to get a deal, because a publisher is not going to look at you. It's going to be a lot harder to get a deal if you don't have some kind of platform. I'm not talking about influencer status or anything. Just, it's a business at the end of the day. They want you to be able to sell books. So start a platform now so that you can say, I feel comfortable saying that I will sell 1,000 books in the first year, or 2,000 books, or just have an idea, right? And then you go from there.
I have to add to that, that's awesome, Ashley. Again, with the baby example, right? When you know you're pregnant, you tell everybody. So that's what I did. As soon as I started to write the book, I told everybody. And I was very intentional about building an email database. And also each time I posted something on social media and people had some sort about my book, right? Like a picture of myself, you know, writing on my computer or with a coffee on the table or anything, my sticky notes. And I used to publish that. And each time people said something, commented or something, I had this system that I would capture those names. So when I did my crowdfunding, I connected with every single person who had ever liked or commented on my book writing process posts. And I sent individual emails. I sent WhatsApp messages and text messages individually to every single person that I knew, telling them that I had this crowdfunding campaign, support my book, and you will receive a signed copy, like a pre-order type of thing. So I spent like 5 days, like 10 hours each day, contacting every single person. That's the type of commitment we're talking about. And when the baby is born and the book is out, very important to do that event. And I have to say, to me, it has been the thing that has been most outside of my comfort zone has been to do these Instagram reels or videos. Then I started to get used to that. I'm an introvert, so to me, put myself on camera and do these videos, I felt stupid. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? But it's important because the book is not about myself. It has a purpose. It's a movement. It's transformational. It helps our community. It moves us forward. So it's believing in there's a mission bigger than myself. I don't care how you feel, Valeria. It's like, go out and do it. Just go out. So I did that. And that has been my journey, but it's embracing in every cell of your body. That is not just a book. It's a life transformational thing. It's a mission, it's a purpose, and to live it that way.
Thank you, Valeria. And I just want to jump in and kind of support what's being said here from the perspective of somebody that receives a lot of one-pagers about different books from the community. There is an entire network online. It's not a huge network, but it is a strong network of Latinas who are creating their own media outlets to raise awareness about the arts, including the launches of books. So for instance, for me, with the Ocu-Pasion podcast, I receive a lot of emails that just give me a one-pager and a bio. And if you're interested, I can send you a link for an excerpt or sometimes even the entire book. I read it. If I'm interested, I schedule that person for an interview. And what's helpful about that is that a lot of times the podcasters themselves or the people who are creating these online magazines and media outlets create the content in the reels and put the stories together that you might not be able to and get them out into the world and kind of help you with your marketing. A lot of times that happens completely free of charge because you're helping them create content for what they're building as well. So it's just a little bit of insight there. We are almost at the end of this segment. We're going to jump into a Q&A, but before we go, I did want to ask if we can answer just briefly about the movements, because I think one thing that you both have in common that's pretty extraordinary about what you've done is that your books have really become communities and movements. So if you can speak about how you've been able to sort of leverage these topics into a real world network.
I think I can't speak for Valeria, but I think the Jefa and training movement started very organically. You know, I think people read the book, they felt like they connected to it, they started posting about it online, they started writing to me, which, by the way, if you love our books, please tell us, because sometimes we really need that. We really need that to keep going. But like, I love seeing those messages. And then I ended up launching my Jefa and training community platform just last month. It took a while. I was building it through socials and newsletter, and now we actually have a membership community, and it's been very, very exciting. And, you know, I've been starting to do more and more events around the country. I just had a conversation today with someone who I might go on tour with. So look for me in your city. And so I think that if you feel like there is a need for something, other people will feel it too. That's actually, I think, how I end my introduction or the last part of the book. I can't remember. And so when you feel like there is a need, right, people are organically going to come to you and want to be around other people who also feel that need. So if you're providing a space for them, whether that's through social media, newsletter, an actual digital platform like Circle or Slack or Mighty Networks, whatever it is, or through in-person events, like they're gonna gravitate towards you. They will find you. They will find you, and it's gonna be the most magical thing. I mean, you're all here today, right? Because you found us because we're like you and you gravitated towards what we were doing. I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And you all got here not because we ran a bunch of ads, but because we just shared it in our community. And I think that that's pretty powerful. What do you think, Valeria?
Yes, so similar experience about the organic part. So something that I was very intentional with the book is I put a lot of love in showcasing those Latinas that I had interviewed as who they truly are. And when I shared those stories with them, what I had written about them, they cried. I connected deeply with them in those Zoom calls. and I connected with their essence. I saw their greatness. And sometimes it's easier for another person to see your greatness. It's hard for you to see yourself. But I connected with that in every person, and I put that in the book. So the book, when you read it, touches your heart through those stories. And I started to hear from people, this is a movement, this is a movement. When 7 people said this is a movement, including 2 white men, I said, there's something about this. Let's create a movement. So the subtitle of my book is Transforming Our Mindsets and Rising Together. So we took Rising Together movement and we create a movement. So the movement goes to different cities so I do a lot of speaking for corporations and organizations, which usually bring me for 1 to 2 hours. But I'm like, I'm going to bring these women that is now more than Latinas are women in a room all day. So we go to different cities. We've been in El Paso, Texas, in Nashville, Tennessee, Boston. We're going to be in New York, most possibly in February next year. And we have a full day session talking about these topics, our mindsets, but also what actions we need to take. That's what the movement is about, is bringing to the people the conversations they need to have, the space, create a safe space where people open up and discuss topics that may be stigmatized or taboo. I'm not going to say this at work because they are going to label me, things like that. That happens in a day. And then I have a membership space too. But this is all from people asking for this. So if you ask me, where is the movement going in 1 year or 2 years? I don't know right now, because I know what's going to happen in 6 months, but it's in constant evolution and going where people ask for it, where people need it. And it's constantly evolving. It's all about us. It's not about me, right? It's about us. So how do we create what we need to create to bring change to the system?
All right, so we're going to transition just a few minutes of Q&A. If you'd like to speak and take yourself off mute and jump in, we'd love to hear from you. If not, I can also read from the chat. Would anybody like to jump in with a question? I can also kick it off with a question that was in the chat here. What would be the minimum budget that we would need to have as an initial investment for a first-time author? I believe this is a question maybe for self-publishing or hybrid route. Anybody like to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, if you work with a publisher, technically you don't have to have any kind of budget, but I will tell you, I did invest a bunch because things come up, right? Especially if you don't get in advance. There's the photo shoots, there's the outfits for the photo shoots, there's hiring a publicist if you're going to do that. There's all these things. I think probably like the year the book came, and then there's touring, but that's like a whole other topic if you want to do that. But probably the year before that, the year before the book released, prepping for the book, doing all these promotional things and preparing for that, I think I probably spent at least a couple of grand on all of those things, and also redoing the website, things like that. And then once you get into hiring a publicist is at least $3,000 a month. Hiring, coaches, that's probably another like $2,000 a month. So it really depends on what you think you're going to need. And then as far as hybrid publishing, I'll let Valeria speak to that.
Yes, so I did crowdfunding. So I got roughly $10,000, which covered all my publication costs. There are also some other programs that I've been looking into. They ask you to invest roughly $10,000 and they help you through the process of the edition and so on, kind of self-publishing, but with these small businesses, these businesses that help you out. A minimum of $10,000, I would say. Some of them have payment plans, but I have to agree, I hired a virtual assistant and I directed most of the publishing portion myself, having been in marketing. There are some things you can do, but there are real costs. $10,000 is a good number to think about minimum for self-publishing if you want to do hardcovers, paperback, and audiobook, minimum $10,000. And the marketing part is its own animal in itself, yes.
We have another question in the chat. It's really about a comment that Ashley made. She said, prepárense. If you want to be an author, prepárense. What exactly do you mean by preparing yourself? What does preparedness look like?
Know that you're going to, I said that in reference to like becoming an author, and prepare yourself to invest all of the time that you would invest in starting a whole new business. So if you have a full-time job or if you have an existing business, know that you are going to dedicate at least 2 to 4 hours every day working on building your author platform, doing interviews for the book once your book is out. It's a big undertaking if you want to make an impact the way that Valeria and I have. It's not something that I'm going to tell you is easy by any means, or that doesn't take a lot of time. But I will leave you with a thing that I truly believe that it is very, very rewarding. Very, very rewarding on all fronts for me.
Yeah, it's a legacy. So those 2 to 4 hours a day, you don't realize is you're doing something meaningful that has transformed your life, that you believe on. So it doesn't feel like work. It's legacy, it's impact, it's heartfelt. So it's a good thing.
Ashley and Valeria, thank you both so much for all of the information. This hour went by so quickly. There's so much more we can talk about here. It's really exciting. I just want to, before we go, I want to present to the audience all of the resources. What can you do if you want to learn more? If you're interested in the book, if you want to follow the movements, where can people take a next step?
So I have a nice little slide prepared for everyone. So Valeria and I put our brains together to see how we could guide you in the right direction after this. One, this is going to be recorded and emailed to you all, so you have this as a resource. Two, if you are interested in purchasing signed copies of both of our books, we have a very special limited time offer on a bundle. If you scan that QR code, it will take you to the link to buy the bundle. Additionally, I am offering author development sessions to further talk about everything that we spoke about, whether if you want to work out your book proposal with me, work out a marketing launch plan, et cetera, you get 10% off of those with the code author Jefa. So I'll leave that up for a couple of minutes, but I'll also be sharing this with all of you when I send out the email. And then in just a minute, I can pull up another slide which has the links to buy each of our books individually in case you already have Jefa and you want Valeria's book, or vice versa. You can do that as well. They will be signed, and I like to personalize mine too, so they might take a little bit longer to get to you. I think Valeria does that also, so it will be worth the wait, though. I promise.
Yes, with quite a nice dedication. And now Uncolonized Latinas is also in Spanish, Latinas Descolonizadas, which I translated on my own, almost with a team of 2 people, and with the mission of having my parents read my book because they do not speak a word of English. So that's now available in Spanish too.
I'm so excited that it's in Spanish. I think that that's really amazing. The impact is going to be just huge when people get it to that. So these are the links to buy the books individually. If you want to scan those QR codes, again, this is all going to be sent to you with the recording. So don't worry if you don't catch it right now. And last thing, thank you all so much for being here today. This is we called it like the author journeys for a reason, because it really is a journey, and I think that this is the start of all of yours. So that's very exciting. Today is day 1 of your author journey. So enjoy it, embrace it. One thing that I wish I would have done more is document the process. I think I was just so tired and just so overwhelmed that I did not do enough of that. And I look back on that now and I'm like, oh man, I really should have, recorded more videos of me doing things for the book. And so just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey, because it really is. It's a good one.
Yes, and I love to talk about micro steps. As daunting as writing a book could feel, it's writing 1 word at a time. And something that you can maybe start doing as you figure out your path ahead is to maybe write something and post that in social media. Start getting into the mood of writing something that comes from your heart, something that is meaningful to you, and putting that out there in the world. And it's really rewarding to do that. It doesn't have to be a book. It can be something like a blog or posts of any sort that then can become a book over time. So something you can start today. I can hear, I'm not sure if you can hear my kids, and the dog is a mess in the background. I think that Inter Miami scored a goal. I think they're playing, and sorry if you hear the celebration there. We are big Messi fans. So thank you for coming today. Please, I invite you to consider publishing, writing, anything that is a legacy or impact. Your voice is needed. As Latinas and other women of color, we need, and as men here as well, we need to share our voices and our stories. We need to make ourselves more visible. Otherwise, we will continue to be unseen and unheard. It's very important. So that's my invitation to you and my encouragement, and the mission of this call together with Ashley and Delsy in the beginning was like to invite you to consider taking a risk, go out of your comfort zone and do something that will transform your life and the life of others. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you so much.
Thank
Valeria and Ashley,
you. Thank you,
gracias.
everyone.
Thank you to everybody who's here. Stay inspired, stay creative. Let's keep rising together. And we hope to see you for the next talk.